held its breath as martial arts god Chuck Norris openly scoffed at Steven Seagal. The action star's tough guy ego was shattered. He now had to prove his life's work wasn't just a Hollywood joke. The Osaka Budokan arena hummed with a sacred energy. Thousands of spectators sat in hushed reverence, their collective respect a palpable force in the vast hall. Banners depicting ancient samurai clans and martial arts schools, judo, kendo, kyudo, hung silently from the high, curved ceiling. This was the International Budo Expo, a hallowed gathering where tradition was king and mastery was the only currency. Camera crews moved with quiet purpose, their lenses trained on the pristine wooden stage, a space consecrated by generations of martial virtue. In the front row, an icon sat like a coiled cobra. Chuck Norris, even at 80, possessed an aura of undeniable power. His white karate gi was immaculate, his posture ramrod straight. But his face, framed by its famous beard, was a mask of stern impatience. His sharp eyes darted around, not with the appreciative gaze of a fellow master, but with the critical glare of a judge. He seemed utterly at odds with the serene atmosphere, a storm cloud in a clear sky. Backstage, Steven Seagal centered his breathing. At 60, the flash of Hollywood had receded, replaced by a quiet intensity. His hair was pulled back in a traditional top knot, and a neatly trimmed, graying beard lent his features a new gravitas. He adjusted the belt of his heavy, black Aikido gi, the fabric a testament to function over form. For him, this demonstration was not a performance. It was a pilgrimage, a chance to present Aikido not as a collection of techniques, but as a philosophy of harmony and control, the culmination of a journey from the silver screen back to the soul of the art. 5 minutes, Master Seagal, a young assistant whispered, bowing low. Seagal nodded, a flicker of warmth in his otherwise focused eyes. He closed them for a moment, visualizing the kata. It was a fluid, complex series of movements designed to illustrate Aikido's core principle, redirecting an opponent's energy, not confronting it. It was about subduing conflict itself. The arena's veteran announcer, Kaido Tanaka, approached the microphone. His voice, smooth and resonant, filled the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a profound honor to welcome a man who has walked two paths, that of a global action star and that of a dedicated master. He is here today to share the deeper meaning of his art. Please welcome, from the Aikikai Foundation, Master Steven Seagal. A wave of respectful applause swept through the Budokan as Seagal walked onto the stage. He bowed deeply to the audience, to the judges' table where the venerable Master Kenji Tanaka sat, and finally, to the center of the stage itself. As the applause died down, a perfect, profound silence fell. Seagal took his stance, a picture of calm readiness. In that moment of absolute stillness, a sound cut through the air like a shard of glass. A short, sharp scoff. It came from the front row, from Chuck Norris. He leaned toward one of his senior students, a smirk twisting his lips as he muttered something under his breath. It was not loud, but in the sanctified silence of the Budokan, it was a sonic boom. A ripple of shock and disbelief spread through the nearby seats. Master Tanaka's serene expression tightened, his eyes narrowing on Norris with imperceptible disapproval. On stage, Seagal's posture remained unbroken, but a storm had just been unleashed within him. Seagal began his demonstration, his movements as fluid as flowing water. Each turn, each subtle shift of weight was a study in economy and grace. He demonstrated how a wrist lock could be applied with minimal force, how an opponent's momentum could become their own undoing. The large screens magnified the quiet confidence in his eyes, the controlled power that lay dormant in his hands. He was painting a picture of peace through absolute control. But the harmony was broken. Norris shifted in his seat, his arms crossed, his disapproval radiating from the front row. He shook his head dismissively at a particularly intricate technique, another quiet but devastating gesture of contempt. The audience was now divided. Some were captivated by Seagal's art. while others nervously watched Norris, anticipating the inevitable confrontation. When Seagal completed his final movement, returning to a state of perfect stillness, he bowed. The applause was strong, but it was laced with an anxious tension. Before the announcer could thank him, another voice took command. "If I may," Chuck Norris said, rising from his seat and striding purposefully toward the stage. He didn't wait for an invitation, taking the microphone from a stunned Kaido Tanaka. He stood not beside Seagal, but slightly in front, a subtle power play that every martial artist in the room understood. "Ladies and gentlemen," Norris began, his voice the familiar, no-nonsense drawl of a screen legend. "What we have just seen is elegant." The word dripped with condescension. It's beautiful choreography, but let's not fool ourselves. In a real fight on the street when your life is on the line, that kind of dancing will get you killed. A wave of gasps and murmurs swept through the crowd. This was an unprecedented breach of etiquette. Seagal stood frozen, his face a neutral mask, but his mind was reeling. This was a direct assault on his life's work. "I've trained with the best soldiers and police officers in the world," Norris continued, turning to face Seagal directly. "My system, Chun Kook Do, is built on what works. On stopping a threat. Decisively. This is a philosophy. It's not a fighting style." Master Kenji Tanaka, a man whose presence usually commanded absolute respect, rose slowly. "Mr. Norris," he said, his voice soft but firm. "This expo is a celebration of all martial traditions. There is room for many paths." "With all due respect, Master," Norris countered, "the audience deserves to see the truth. They deserve to know what works and what's just for show." He turned to the crowd, his voice booming. "Wouldn't you rather see a real demonstration of power, of effectiveness?" Shouts of agreement mixed with cries of protest. The arena was electric with conflict. Seagal knew he was trapped. To refuse was to admit weakness. To accept was to engage in the very ego-driven contest Aikido sought to transcend. He looked at Master Tanaka, who gave a slow, almost imperceptible nod. The message was clear. Sometimes, to defend a principle, you must step into the fire. "I did not come here for a fight," Seagal said, his voice quiet but clear, picked up by the microphone. "Then what are you afraid of?" Norris shot back. "I'm proposing a simple comparison. A demonstration. Your practical Aikido versus my battle-tested karate. Unless you're not confident it holds up." The challenge hung in the air, a declaration of war. The crowd roared. Seagal took a deep breath, the master within calming the storm of indignation. He would not fight. He would demonstrate. "Very well," Seagal said, his voice resonating with newfound resolve. "A demonstration, to illustrate principles." The center of the stage was cleared, transforming it into a dueling ground. Norris removed the top of his GI, revealing a physique honed by a lifetime of relentless training. Seagal remained in his full attire, a dark, immovable mountain against Norris's bright, aggressive energy. "Traditional first," Norris taunted. "Show me what you've got." He exploded into motion. A lightning-fast front kick aimed at Seagal's center. It was a classic, powerful karate technique designed to shatter ribs. But Seagal wasn't there. With a barely perceptible turn of his hips, he pivoted, allowing the kick to slice through empty air. Norris's momentum carried him forward, slightly off balance. "You can't just dodge forever," Norris growled, launching into a furious combination. A jab, a cross, a roundhouse kick. Each strike was a piston of focused power. Seagal didn't block a single one. Instead, he blended with the storm. As the jab came, he guided the arm past him. As the cross flew, he ducked under it, his hand making brief contact with Norris's elbow, subtly disrupting its trajectory. As the kick swept toward him, he entered, moving inside its arc where the power was weakest. He was a ghost, an echo, and Norris was punching at shadows. For a full minute, the pattern repeated. Norris, the aggressor, attacking with increasing ferocity. Seagal, the defender, neutralizing every attack with effortless grace, his feet barely seeming to move. He was a boulder in a raging river, the water splitting and flowing around him, its fury spent on his unyielding calm. "This is pointless," Norris finally yelled, stepping back, his chest heaving. "Engage me. Fight me." "The goal of Aikido is not to fight," Seagal said calmly, his voice carrying through the silent arena. "It is to end the fight before it begins. To protect yourself, and even to protect your attacker from their own aggression." "Protect me?" Norris laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "Let's see you protect yourself from this." He charged, not with a strike, but with a grapple, intending to use his raw strength to overpower Seagal. He grabbed Seagal's lapels, muscles bulging as he tried to throw him. It was a critical mistake. He had willingly connected his center of gravity to a master of balance and leverage. Seagal's body flowed into motion. His hands covered Norris's, not to resist, but to guide. He sank his weight, turned his hips, and in one smooth, continuous spiral, used Norris's own forward momentum to unbalance him. Norris stumbled, his powerful frame suddenly awkward and unstable. He caught himself just before falling, a look of pure shock on his face. He had poured all his strength into the attack, only to have it turned against him with almost no apparent effort. The audience, which had been buzzing with excitement, was now utterly silent. They were witnessing a physical argument, and one side was making a far more compelling case. Norris had shown them power. Seagal was showing them control. Enough of this dancing. Norris seethed, his frustration boiling over. The quiet humiliation of being outmaneuvered was more galling than any physical blow. To prove what really works, we need to raise the stakes. He gestured to the side of the stage, where a rack of traditional training weapons stood. "Let's see how your philosophy holds up against a weapon." Master Tanaka nodded his assent, and assistants brought the weapons forward. Norris, seeking to assert his power, selected a 4-foot Joe staff, a simple but devastating weapon in the right hands. Seagal surveyed the rack and chose a bakkin, a curved wooden sword, the soul of the samurai. The symbolism was stark, the direct, forceful staff against the fluid, cutting sword. They faced each other again. The tension in the Budokan was now so thick it felt hard to breathe. Norris held the staff in a wide, aggressive grip, his knuckles white. Seagal held the bakkin in a two-handed ready stance, the blade still, his body relaxed. "Hajime," Master Tanaka called out. "Begin." Norris lunged, the staff a blur as it jabbed towards Seagal's throat. Seagal deflected it with a precise, angled block from his bakkin, the wood-on-wood crack echoing through the hall. Norris spun the staff, bringing it around in a sweeping arc aimed at Seagal's legs. Seagal didn't retreat. He advanced, stepping inside the sweep and using the flat of his blade to press the staff harmlessly into the floor. The exchange was a whirlwind of motion. Norris attacked with relentless, powerful strikes, each one meant to crush and break. Seagal responded with the soul of Aikido, his bakkin not a weapon of destruction, but an instrument of control. He parried, redirected, and guided, never meeting force with force, but always flowing around it, using the bakkin to find the weak points in Norris's attack, the moments of imbalance. Norris was growing visibly tired, his powerful movements consuming vast amounts of energy. Seagal, by contrast, seemed to be gaining strength, his calm focus unwavering. Frustrated by his inability to land a clean blow, Norris decided to end it. He feinted high with the staff, and as Seagal moved to block, he dropped his level and lunged forward, a powerful, committed thrust aimed at Seagal's center. It was an all-or-nothing gamble, and it was the opening Seagal had been waiting for. As the staff shot forward, Seagal pivoted. It was the same simple, elegant turn he had used to evade the first kick. But this time, he didn't just evade. He entered. In a single, fluid motion that seemed to defy physics, he stepped inside Norris's lunge, his body brushing past the thrusting staff. His left hand guided the weapon harmlessly past his body while his right hand, still gripping the bakkin, rose. His hips turned, his feet finding their place. He had closed the distance. He was inside the storm. What happened next took less than a second. He executed a flawless Irimi Nage, the entering throw. Using the full force of Norris's own charging momentum, Seagal turned, spiraled, and projected that energy upward and over. For a single, surreal moment, the legendary Chuck Norris was airborne. He went over Seagal's shoulder in a clean, helpless arc, his body completely controlled. He landed flat on his back with a deafening thud that shook the entire stage. The Bakken in Seagal's hand never touched him. Absolute, profound silence descended upon the Osaka Budokan arena. 10,000 people held their breath. They had just witnessed the impossible. Then as one, the crowd gasped, a sound of pure, unadulterated shock. They had come to see a fight. They had just witnessed a lesson. For a long moment, nobody moved. Chuck Norris lay on the polished wood, the air driven from his lungs, his face a canvas of disbelief. His aura of invincibility had been shattered. Steven Seagal stood over him, not in triumph, but in a posture of quiet readiness, his breathing steady. The throw had been the climax, but what he did next would be the true demonstration. He carefully placed his Bakken on the floor, a gesture of peace. Then, he extended a hand to the fallen legend. Norris stared at the outstretched hand, his pride warring with the undeniable reality of his defeat. Slowly, reluctantly, he accepted it. Seagal pulled him to his feet with a strength that was both firm and supportive. Then, in a move that stunned the audience even more than the throw, Seagal stepped back and bowed deeply to Norris, a bow of ultimate respect from victor to vanquished. That single act of humility transformed the event. The crowd, silent until now, erupted in a tidal wave of applause. It was not the roar for a knockout, but a deep, rolling ovation of appreciation for an act of profound martial virtue. Later, in the quiet serenity of a backstage tea room, the air was thick with unspoken thoughts. Master Kenji Tanaka sat between the two men, calmly preparing matcha. Norris, now dressed in his street clothes, stared into his empty tea bowl. "You could have humiliated me," Norris finally said, his voice raspy. "After the throw, you could have finished it. Why didn't you?" Seagal met his gaze, his eyes holding no judgment. "Because that would have been a victory for my ego, not for my art," he replied softly. Aikido teaches that when a conflict is over, it is truly over. There is no need for punishment, only reconciliation. He paused, then continued. "For years, I was in Hollywood. I played the tough guy. I projected an image of being invincible. But I lost touch with the Budo, the true spirit of the art. Coming back to the discipline, it was a way of fighting the biggest opponent I ever faced, myself. What happened out there today was the conclusion of that fight, not the one with you." Norris listened, his expression unreadable. Here was a man he had dismissed as a mere actor, a performer, revealing a depth of character he had not expected. He, Chuck Norris, the paragon of strength, had been driven by ego and aggression. Seagal, the Hollywood star, had demonstrated control and humility. "My teacher," Norris said quietly, "told me that the hardest block is the one against your own pride. I think I forgot that today." Master Tanaka poured the tea, his movements a silent sermon on mindfulness. "The path of the warrior is long," he said, his voice a soothing balm. "Sometimes we must be thrown to the ground to remember which way is up." Today, the audience did not see a winner and a loser. They saw two great masters each learn a valuable lesson. A mutual, unspoken respect began to form in the space between them. A silent acknowledgement that their confrontation had forged something more valuable than a victory. The next day, news of the Osaka takedown had gone viral. But the narrative, driven by thousands of eyewitness accounts and the powerful final image of Seagal's bow, was not one of simple victory. The headlines didn't read "Seagal defeats Norris." They read, "Seagal shows the true meaning of mastery." The conversation had shifted from "who is tougher" to "what is true strength." The expo organizers, sensing the profound cultural moment, replaced the final day's closing ceremony with a special panel discussion. Tradition, combat, and the spirit of Budo. They invited both Seagal and Norris to speak. The event was packed. On stage, a different Chuck Norris appeared. He was more thoughtful, less rigid. For decades, I believed that strength was the ability to overwhelm an opponent, he told the captivated audience. Yesterday, Master Seagal taught me that true strength is the ability to control a situation so completely that overwhelming force becomes unnecessary. He taught me that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is choose not to strike. Seagal, in turn, praised Norris's incredible spirit and power, framing their encounter not as a fight, but as a physical conversation that allowed both their arts to be expressed truthfully. The event became a legend in the martial arts world. It sparked a global dialogue, forcing dojos and gyms everywhere to re-examine their teachings. Was their goal to create fighters or to build character? Was victory measured by a defeated opponent or by a conquered self? The confrontation in Osaka did not end with a punch or even a throw. It ended with a handshake and a shared cup of tea. It proved that the most powerful martial art isn't one of kicks or strikes, but one that can transform an enemy into a friend and a conflict into a lesson. It reminded the world that the path of a true warrior leads not to a battlefield, but to a state of peace. What do you think is true strength? Is it the power to dominate, or the discipline to control? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and always remember to comment with respect. If this story moved you, share with a friend, and be sure to subscribe for more tales of unexpected mastery.